Thanks so much for being with us here on Atlanta News First Plus. I'm Joy Lim Nakrin. Okay, so as we promised, if you were watching the new newscast, we are keeping our eyes on our nation's capital, where the former president is expected to face a judge in just a matter of hours for his third criminal indictment now. Security has now been heightened outside the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C., as the world is watching and waiting. Once again, Trump will be arraigned on his latest indictment on 4 felony charges stemming from the special counsel's January 6th investigation. So these charges, these indictments include conspiracy to defraud the U.S., conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights. All right, so I want to bring in, we have a special guest joining us for some analysis right now. We have attorney Jamara Edwards Shipp with us. Thank you so much for being with us. First of all, what are you watching for right now? What are you watching for today?
Right now, I'm watching for his appearance and his arraignment at 4 p.m. It is going to be a show. These are actual kind of the charges that everybody has been waiting for regarding the January 6th insurrection. And, a lot of people have been waiting for these charges. So now this is basically showtime for special counsel Jack Smith and his progeny.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of eyes, the eyes of the world really on, what's happening today with this indictment. There have been some legal observers that have said 4 charges, that's not really a lot, but it looks like, in some people's opinion, maybe the idea is to go for quality over quantity, that the fact that there are only 4 counts here means that, this was very deliberate, this was very focused, that this indicates that the charges that were filed are well backed with evidence. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. One thing about the feds that I've learned in practice is when the federal prosecution team comes to indict a person, they're not looking to add on fluff. They're usually zeroing in, and that's why they have such a high conviction rate. I believe it's somewhere around either 95 to 99.97%.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they're pretty much in tune with what they are looking for.
And how does that compare, at the state level?
Well, at the state level, a lot of things come into play. You sometimes have these plea agreements where charges are dropped off. You sometimes have where we take it all the way to trial and the person is acquitted. So the state level is a lot lower, and it's not to say that state prosecutors are that less talented.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that when you're looking at federal agents who even the field agents have JDs, Juris Doctorate degrees. These are people who are very tuned in to what they are looking for.
And it could be maybe a different approach. It could be as simple as that, where maybe at the state level they're willing to take a chance and try a case, even if it's not a slam dunk. And maybe what you're saying is that at the federal level, if they're going to file charges and really pursue a prosecution and a trial, that they're going to make sure they're going to win.
That's correct. There have been many times where we think that a case is going to, as we say, go fed, and there'll be some type of esoteric problem within the case, whether it be a warrant issue or a Fourth Amendment issue or something of that nature, and the feds will just say, okay, we're not interested in this case at this time, and we'll allow the state to just deal with it. That just speaks to how they operate.
That's interesting. And you know what? I should point out that there have been demonstrators gathered outside the courthouse. Security is high there at the federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. I want everybody to know that Trump is expected to plead not guilty to the charges. In terms of what's going to happen, well, the judge could potentially impose some travel restrictions. Some legal analysts have said, we could get some admonitions to Trump not to pollute the jury pool, not to make incendiary statements. And by the way, Trump has posted on social media that he believes he cannot receive a fair trial in Washington, D.C. He says that he's going to push to have the case moved to a more Trump-friendly states such as West Virginia. Okay, I saw you chuckle a little bit.
Yes.
What's that about?
It plays into just his gamemanship in everything that he does. Former President Trump, as I've said many times, he knows how to play the game. He knows that in Washington D.C., it's more likely going to be a liberal jury pool. So he's trying to do all he can to remove it. Will it work? That's up for interpretation, and that's for us to see in the future. Me personally, I doubt it will work. There's nothing to really suggest that the venue needs to be changed. But however, he has attorneys that will do what he asks, and apparently he's already directed them to try and get it to a more friendly area. So we'll be seeing that in the future.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, now we're talking about like change of venue, and that has to be filed in a motion and all that.
Right.
But just backing up for what's happening today, that some people are saying there might be some admonitions, like the judge saying you can't make any incendiary statements, telling Trump you can't make any incendiary statements, and he's already been on social media saying I can't get a fair trial in D.C. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially saying that I can't get a fair trial in D.C. Maybe I would need my trial in West Virginia. That's the gist of what he's saying. So, do you think that we're going to see a judge say, look, no more, you cannot do that. Don't go on social media, don't go on TV saying anything about this case?
Well, looking at the background of the magistrate who's in charge of his appearance today, she does have a background in defending cases. So it is quite possible that she will, do a balance and say, okay, listen, we want this to be a fair and impartial trial. Let's put up, don't make any statements that may taint the jury pool. Just kind of, you're still allowed to exercise your First Amendment right, but at the same time, you are a former president and your reach is very wide and very long. So, we don't need to have all of these statements made. There may be some travel restrictions in, cases with someone who isn't as high profile as a former president. Usually, this person is asked whether or not, or the federal agents or federal prosecutors may ask whether or not this person will be put on detention, but I doubt that, he has to worry about those things today.
Because he's not generally considered a flight risk.
Right,
So.
he's not a person that, can just fall in the cracks. I mean, it's Donald Trump. We all know who Donald Trump is, and where he resides and things of that nature.
Yeah, true. That's true. But I mean, and this is now his third indictment. So we've seen the other two times he hasn't had travel restrictions. He's been flying back and forth on his jet. Let me silence that phone for you.
I appreciate that. You never know what may happen.
That could be his lawyer calling you right now.
Right. Hey, you, be quiet.
But I mean, and then with regarding the actual charges, he is expected to plead not guilty. Not really a surprise there, right? This is kind of the pattern that we have seen. But as for if and when this case does go to trial, I guess his lawyers are planning to argue that his false claims about the election were not actually criminal. Looks like maybe, there's going to be this argument that this is political speech that's been criminalized, that, some of the statements should be protected, are protected free speech. What is your take on that? What's your take on that whole legal defense argument?
So, taking a look at the indictment, the first thing that they kind of acknowledged was, this is not an attack on the First Amendment. These are attacks on a person who knew that they lost the election and did everything they could to try and defraud the U.S. government into believing that this person had the election stolen from them. Now, to kind of get into the logistics of that, they're going to have to prove that former President Trump did know that he lost the election, yet he still went on to say that, the election was stolen from him. And that means that they have to prove his state of mind at the time. this goes back into, I think we spoke about this earlier, this goes back into the concession by Rudy Giuliani last week that stated, hey, I lied about there being election fraud, and because I lied, we should just move past our procedural things in the separate case that Rudy Giuliani has. So, saying all that, former President Trump now has the opportunity to say, hey, I listened to my counsel. My counsel told me that the election had been stolen from me. I have found out now that that person lied. So by me relying on that person, I shouldn't be held culpable for, these first three charges. The last indictment, or the last count of the indictment, it's kind of like Prosecutor Jack Smith's his insurance policy, because he doesn't have to prove a state of mind with this one. But the first three, he definitely is going to have to prove, hey, there was a state of mind that he knew he lost the election. Statements such as, we're going to leave that to the next guy, that is not the smoking gun that, some people may think it is, saying that, okay, well, he knew he lost the election. He knew that it was time for him to leave, but he could very well argue that, hey, I never thought that I lost the election.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, how he could try to argue it. You know, this is the third criminal indictment against this former president. I mean, it's truly historic.
Yes.
So, and just to kind of remind everybody, I want to take a second, just point everybody to our website, atlantanewsfirst.com, because it's very complicated. I mean, there is a lot here.
Yes.
So if you want to kind of sort out what are all the various investigations surrounding the former president, and I'm just kind of showing you. See, you go on that tab, the news tab, and then we have this whole section, Donald Trump. You click on that, and you can really scroll down and see all the different headlines. You see timeline, because let's not forget. Okay, we've got now, like I said, it's the third indictment. We've got the situation in Florida most recently, where again, Special Counsel, Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith, indicted the former president on some 40 counts of mishandling classified documents, at the Mar-a-Lago estate of the former president. And then before that, you had the indictment in New York, the charges there being falsifying business records, and that's related to alleged hush money payments to Stormy Daniels via the former attorney for Trump, Michael Cohen. So you got a lot here. And then here's the thing that is big time on our radar right here in Georgia, in Fulton County, Georgia, is we're awaiting the possibility of another indictment here in Georgia out of Fulton County by DA Fani Willis any moment now, probably in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing. It's a lot to get your mind around.
It is a lot to get your mind around. Even when you read parts of the indictment that just came out for the January 6th insurrection, you're seeing where, everyone was telling him, okay, hey, you've effectively lost the election, it's kind of time to wrap it up. And he just continued on, even going as far to reach out to the Secretary of State for Georgia and, saying, hey, I just need you to find those 11,000 or so votes in my favor. And, that's part of this indictment. So it speaks a lot to how everything is interwoven, intertwined, and it's just, it's a lot to take in.
So I want to ask you, though, because this latest indictment is the one that is really connected to what's happening in Georgia, because it seems that some of the basis for these indictments is alleged activity that happened right here in Georgia. Because again, what's happening in Georgia, the investigation, this grand jury that has been seated has been looking into possible interference in the 2020 election by Mr. Trump and his allies. That's the allegations. And then again, this case that we're looking at also related to the 2020 election as well. So it looks like what we see today could be indicative in a way of what we see down in the near future right here in Georgia. So I want to ask you about this, because part of the argument that we understand that Trump's legal team might put forth is that, he was just listening to his attorneys like Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, And we've actually learned, or CBS News has learned, that they are likely some of those 6 co-conspirators cited in the indictment. They have not been charged. Maybe they'll be charged. So connecting the dots here, what we know about this indictment in federal court in D.C., where he's about to face a judge less than 3 hours from now at 4 o'clock, what's the implication for right here in Georgia, in Fulton County?
So there's a grand implication. Of course he's going to plead not guilty. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. But it does kind of shine light on perhaps where District Attorney Willis is going in her investigation by showing, hey, this is what he did in Georgia. He tried to subvert the election by getting the Secretary of State to find, in quotation marks, over 11,000 votes that would have put him over the threshold to win Georgia. So by using that in the federal indictment, it now shows, whereas the state indictment that Miss Willis is working on, it shows kind of where she's going, almost like a map of sorts, by saying, okay, this is what we're going to be looking at. This has always been the focus, I believe, from the get-go for Miss Willis. This phone call, how he tried to pressure Secretary of State Raffensperger into finding those votes, even going as far as to saying, if you don't find them, paraphrasing, of course, if you don't find them, that could be illegal. Kind of threatening him with a thin veiled threat of, you could be held liable if you don't find these votes. So using all of that, or seeing all of that, it is quite possible and, pretty much set in stone that Miss Willis will be using these.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to ask you about, and because I don't know the answer, maybe you do. How much information can these prosecutors share with each other? Special Counsel Jack Smith with the Department of Justice, how much can he share with Fonnie Willis, the Fulton County DA, and vice versa?
So a lot of times they work hand in hand. Even when we, and this is speaking from experience, even when we have, state cases that turn into federal cases, they just turn over the file to the feds and they take a look at it and say, okay, well, yeah, we're going to pursue this based on, what you have here. They did break a federal law, so we're going to pursue it. The main one being, a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. That's the main thing that the feds have been looking at lately. So it is very possible, if not, inevitable, that they are sharing information with each other to kind of, get a slam dunk on this case, because this is one of those situations where you don't want to go in, half-stepping and, just kind of give his campaign more fuel to say, okay, hey, I'm being unfairly prosecuted or persecuted.
Absolutely. Hey, just a reminder for everybody, check out AtlantaNewsFirst.com. If you haven't done it yet, download our free Atlanta News First mobile news app, so you're going to get updates, when anything comes down. When the indictment here, if and when there's an indictment coming down right here in the state of Georgia, in Fulton County, you'll get an alert sent right to your phone about that. And again, the former president expected to face a judge in federal court in D.C. Now it's just like 2.5 hours from now at 4 p.m. So, you'll get an alert about that. Just download Atlanta News First, our mobile news app, if you want to get the latest. Look, while we have you here, I want to ask you about a completely different case that is also very interesting to a lot of our viewers. Everybody's talking about this. They want to know what's going on with Lizzo. Lizzo is now, she's speaking out. She's responding, I should say, to the lawsuit against her. If folks don't know, the allegations have kind of been piling up in the last few days. Lizzo says that she's hurt by the claims in the lawsuit filed against her. It's 3 former dancers claiming that they were subjected to a hostile work environment and harassment while they were on the Grammy winners dance team. In the lawsuit, one plaintiff said that Lizzo questioned her commitment to the team and made, quote, thinly veiled comments about the dancers' weight gain. Lizzo is known for her advocacy, actually, for body positivity, so it's a shock to a lot of people. In an Instagram post, she says that these last few days have been gut-wrenchingly difficult and overwhelmingly disappointing, and she added there's nothing she takes more seriously than the respect that women deserve in the world. Okay, have you looked at this, by the way? I'm sure you have because you always do your research, but what's your response?
I wouldn't have made that statement on Instagram if I were Lizzo, because just as soon as she made it, Counsel for the plaintiffs took it and twisted it around. It almost sounds like kind of an admission of sorts. If I was defense counsel, I would definitely, hone in on that. Where she says, yes, I have high standards for my productions. And, they can definitely use that to say, okay, well, these were her high standards of making sure we didn't gain any weight, or, she berated us for, allegedly drinking before we performed, and also making us, do this 12-hour re-audition for her team. That can be twisted. So had I been counsel for, Lizzo, I would have told her, hey, let's just remain mum at the time, and let's not go out and try and win this in the court of public opinion, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be the people on the jury.
That's true, and as they say, maybe you tell this to your clients, anything you say can and will be used against you.
That is correct. That is correct.
Yeah. And so, look, I just want our viewers to know, every time you come up here, people want to know who is giving that analysis. That is attorney Jamar Edwards Smith, Shipp. I almost called you Smith.
You almost did.
No, that's Jack Smith, the special counsel.
Gotcha, yeah.
But
I love to be put in the same sentence with him.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit also, just briefly, about, your practice and how people can reach out to you.
Hey, I'm J. Edward Shipp. I practice right here in Atlanta and also throughout the state of Georgia. You can reach me at jshipplaw.com or on Instagram, jshipplaw, or even on Facebook. My name is Jamara Edward Shipp on Facebook. So, reach out if you need anything.
Jamara, Jamara.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your analysis. And, again, let me pop up what's on our website, not just Lizzo, if you want to check out our website, but there is a lot to read on the former president, Donald Trump, if you want to check that out. Look, we have it very well organized. With our web team's done a great job laying out key figures, timeline, grand jurors. Again, we're talking about 3 different indictments, 3 different criminal cases currently against the former president, plus the possibility of a 4th one right here in Fulton County, Georgia. Keeping our eyes open. We are on watch for a potential indictment out of Fulton County, again, for alleged interference in the 2020 presidential election. And let's not forget about the civil suit up in New York as well. So there's a lot to keep track of. I encourage you to check it out on atlantanewsfirst.com. And, of course, we're going to keep you up to date with all the latest and keep our eyes on that federal courthouse in D.C., where the president will be facing a judge just about 2.5 hours from now. So keep it here on Atlanta News First. Have a great day.